what was it like restoring Backup Central? It was a treat for sure. And I give you the play-by-play in this excerpt from our Restore It All podcast. If you like the clip, make sure to check out the rest of the podcast by searching for Restore It All wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks for watching.
You could restore it all and rescue me from pain. You had my file inside your head. You erased it. How insane.
So you weren't able to do a backup, but the website functioned for now. And so, but you didn't have any local copies either. But luckily
Right.
for you, because of the 3-2-1 rule, you happen to have copies also in Google Drive and S3.
Exactly.
So how did you
Exactly.
decide where to go to grab your copy?
Well, just being honest, I know AWS better than I know Google Drive. So I was like, I'm gonna go to AWS, right? And and by the way, the forums, while they what do you call it? They are read only and have been now for well over a year. There's still a significant amount of my traffic, right? So it's not like, and by the way, the table in question was like forum_messages. So it was like,
important.
the actual
Yeah.
content, the main content that was
Yeah.
important for the website. And so, yeah, I mean, that decision was pretty easy. I was like, yeah, I'll go to AWS. I've been there before. I know how to get stuff easily out of S3.
Yeah.
So
what
I'll
was
go
your
there.
recovery process like? First, I'm sure you had to restore the data and then recover the database. So what did that look like?
Yeah, if I was a little bit bigger nerd or like a little bit more current on some of my tech, I would have been able to download the file directly from AWS to the host,
Mhm.
but I wasn't or am not. And so what I did was I went to the AWS S3 web interface.
Yep.
And I found I went
You
back
browse
to
the
my
file system structure.
I went back to my email to figure out when did this error start happening. So I went to the backup just before that. And by the way, the good news is my website, especially that portion of my website, as we've already discussed,
static.
is the same. It's static. So
Yeah.
I just needed to find one that was good. So I found a date when the backup succeeded. So I then I went to that date in the AWS,
Browse through the
interface, and downloaded that. It's a gzip tar file. So that meant I had to download it to my computer, unzip the tar file, and then go. My plan was to edit because my SQL dump is just a text file. My plan was to edit that and take out all the tables that weren't the table that I needed to repair, and then upload that to PHPMyAdmin, right? And so I was doing that, and that's when I was like, I don't remember what the actual numbers were, but it was like PHPMyAdmin, you have a maximum upload capability of, let's say, 2 gigabyte. That would be a number that would make sense. And my file was like 75 gigabyte. Like, well, this isn't going to work. Whatever the number was, it probably wasn't 75 gigabyte, but whatever the number was, it was way over the limit. So I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So now what I did was I SCP'd, secure copied, the just the SQL portion of the corrupted table.
Yeah.
And I SCP'd that up to the temp directory on my host. And then I called Liquid Web. I was like, hey, I could do this if I did enough Googling. I could also possibly screw this up. I don't do table level restores of MySQL on the command line. Like I haven't done that in a while.
Yep.
So how about you guys take care of this for me? And they go, yeah, no problem. Da-da-da, boop, 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 boop. And then like 5 minutes later, they're like, it's done. Like, thank you. And so I was able to restore this MySQL database.
And this worked because that was kind of a read-only instance that didn't have a lot of changes, the static
Right.
content. So you could just sort of put that table back and you would be good to go, right? There was no dependencies on
yeah.
other tables, which might have
Right. That's really important because if it was a constantly changing database, I wouldn't be able to restore just one table. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. It would depend on the table.
Yep.
And because if you restore one table to one point in time and another table to another point in time, you create what's called a referential integrity problem. And that is that you have data in one table that's referencing data in another table that now no longer exists.
Yep.
But luckily, these tables, as we have already discussed, were static, and so I could restore any table at any time, and everything would be fine.
Do you also, for your other tables, do you back up the logs in case you needed to roll forward or roll backwards? Like, say you had a table that was changing when you're doing your MySQL dump, are you also capturing those other entries?
Not really, because again, the database that I have and the system that I have, it has like a couple of changes a week.
Yeah. It's not like a bank where you're going to get billions of dollars
Right,
of transactions if you lose
right.
something.
I mean, it's guaranteed to get at least one change with me uploading the most recent episode of this podcast. And it might get a change if somebody made a comment or something on a blog post, or I get a follow back, a ping back, they call it, because somebody else commented on my post or whatever. But yeah, it's a really low change level.
Gotcha. So you were able to get this back up. Now, how did you verify that the restore was actually successful, or the recovery was actually successful?
Well, good question. I did check. The two checks that I was able to do was that I was able to see that the number of rows was the same before and after. But the most important thing was I ran the integrity check that that failed before and it succeeded. And then I immediately ran the backup process.
I was just going to ask you. I was like, did you do a backup after that, Curtis?
I did. I couldn't, I did it at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I couldn't wait till midnight. I wanted to get a backup that was offsite.
Here's
Good restoring.